Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the car guru. Kind of excited today. I'm buying a new vehicle for my wife. Why, Lenny, do you buy new vehicles when you own a new car dealership? Well, it's simple. Over the years, I did give her a car to drive. We called them demos. Matter of fact, back in the old days, back in the 70s and 80s and up into the mid-90s, we gave all of our salespeople a new car demo, all of our sales managers, the office manager, the service manager. No, we didn't give one to the parts manager. All those people had demos. And it was a real problem because we didn't want to put any more than 6,000 miles on any car, and everybody put miles on them at a different rate, regardless of our pleading to them to keep the miles really low. If you go out of town, go on vacation, take your own car. Please don't take the demo. We tried to keep the mileage down so we didn't have this constant merry-go-round of people parking a demo, getting a new one, parking a demo, getting a new one. I mean, I remember the worst it ever got, we had 25 parked demos out on the lot out of an inventory of a little over 100 cars. And that was just new cars. And it was a real problem. And it was a real problem when we took them away because they expected something in exchange, and I get it. So we ended up having to pay them a little bit of money extra each month to cover the cost of a car that they had to go out and buy. But it worked out a lot better for us, and it has worked out a lot better for my wife. And really for me, I buy my F-150, and that's typically what I drive. I thought about changing to we got this new Bronco in, and it's desert sand, 4-door, loaded up, and it's really pretty. And then I drove it, and I said, nope, does not drive near as good as an F-150, so I'm keeping an F-150. But anyway, so she had this Expedition, which we have loved. It's a short wheelbase Expedition, limited, kind of a funky green color, but it grew on us. We really like it, with a light beige interior. It's got 15,000 miles on it, and I normally like to pull her out after 2 years or 15,000 miles. We're at 2 years, and we're at 15,000 miles. So the timing was perfect. And so what am I putting her in? Well, I'm buying a all-new 2026 Nissan Armada. And one might say, well, why aren't you getting a new Expedition? Because she doesn't like, and I don't like, the new instrument panel on those things. It's out there. But we're in the minority because they're selling like hotcakes. The American public loves the Expedition and the new instrumentation. I don't. This new Armada is just incredible. I mean, Nissan needed to change that thing, and they did. Now, gas mileage isn't quite as good as the Expedition. It gets about 3 miles per gallon less. I can live with that because it is gorgeous. It literally is gorgeous. The leather seating is quilted. The dash has this almost the electronic dash, the screens go 3/4 of the way across the dash. There's all kinds of information there, very easy to see. I would want to, if I was going to keep it beyond a couple years, I would buy a service contract. I really would, an extended warranty. Because if that stuff goes bad, it's going to be costly. So I know that if I was buying it to keep for 4 or 5 years, I definitely would buy an extended warranty. But I'm not going to do it because I typically, like I said, 2 years or 15,000 miles. Now, she could go 20,000, 24,000. She just doesn't drive that much. We don't take her vehicle out of town that much. Yeah, we actually take my truck because we like the way it drives better, or I like the way it drives better because I do all the driving. But the Armada is going to be perfect for us for this period. Now, what am I doing? Well, since I finance them, and I know that I trade pretty often, like every 18 months to 2 years, then I don't finance them longer than 48 months. Yep, it's a whopper of a monthly payment. But I've seen a lot worse. I've seen people with higher payments that finance them for 72 months. And typically it's because they're so far upside down on their trade-in because they financed it for 72 or 84 months and didn't pay anything down. So here's my situation. I paid, I think it was $5,000 down on the Expedition, financed it for 48 months. The payoff is $48,000. The actual cash value is $58,000. Now that's dealer wholesale price. What can we sell it for? Probably 62 to 65 maybe. I mean, we really don't know, but that's a competitive retail price. I'm giving you some insider information here. Yes, we do try to stock vehicles, especially used vehicles, for less than what we can sell them for so that we can make something called a profit. Nothing wrong with a profit, as long as it's not too excessive. And that's why this business is a negotiating business, so that people can actually come in and say, would you take less? Or is that the least you'd take? Like I always tell people to ask. Just, it never hurts to ask. So yes, this is going to be a good opportunity for somebody to get a great Ford Expedition with low miles. It's a 2024 model. Now, if I had financed it for 60 months, then I would have wanted to pay more money down. 72 months, to get the monthly payment down, even more money down. If you're financing a vehicle, I figure about $10,000 to $15,000 extra for every 12 months that you extend the monthly payment. And that will keep you in line with the rate of depreciation. Well, I didn't think cars depreciated. Yes, they do. This Armada will depreciate just about like the Expedition. All big SUVs, they go down pretty quickly. Trucks, not as quickly, really not near as quickly. Small SUVs, they drop. Everything drops. Sports cars are awful the way they drop, unless it's a Porsche or a real fancy Corvette or something like that. So, this is it's fun. I get excited getting a new vehicle. We're going to be going to Cincinnati this weekend, and we get to drive it. I bet she wants to drive this time. But I'm not going to let her because I really like this Armada and the way it drives. Yeah, I'll let her, since it's hers. It's titled in both names. Do you do that? When you buy a new car, do you title it, like if you're married to somebody, do you title it in both names? It's about 50-50 what we see. We see some people, depends on how secure their marriage is, I guess. But I always felt like it was important to help my wife get credit and finance the thing in both names and put the title in both names. Because that way, if something happens to me and she goes out and has to buy a car or has to, borrow money for some reason, she's got a credit history. Matter of fact, her Beacon score is higher than mine. She puts me to shame. Now, I can understand why you wouldn't want to put it in both names, especially if one has bad credit. I've seen that a lot, too. I've seen a situation where the husband has terrible credit and the wife has great credit. And then you start asking about, some financial questions, and they are one of those households that keeps everything separate. And there's nothing wrong with that. However you decide to do it, as long as it works for your family, that's fine. Let her pay the rent, you pay the electric bills and the car payments, whatever. I've seen it done both ways. Now, I've never done that. My mom and dad didn't do it, and so I guess that was just the pattern I went through. As soon as we got married, we opened a joint bank account, and that's where all the money went. And, sometimes one person pays the bills, the other creates all the bills. So it's just really important that you operate as a team. Don't you think? That you work together. And, I guess probably our biggest arguments as a married couple were over money. Was it that way with you? I mean, I would fuss. It was typically me bringing up the subject. She didn't want to talk about money. And, of course, I did it on the worst possible day, which is Sunday, when I was paying bills and stuff like that. And I said, what was this charge on the credit card? Honey, we can't do this. I have to pay this whole balance. It was that type of thing. So, but when it comes to cars, I've seen how people choose to finance cars, and there's typically reasons for that. You may be talking to some salesperson or finance manager, and he may say, well, folks, if you take him off of the loan, the payment will go down. And hopefully they explain that to you. It's because, his credit score or debt to income or something is not near as good as yours is, and they want to take him off. It could be a situation where you're going in, like a grandfather is going in to buy a car for a grandson, and they want to put both of them on the note, or he just wants to put the grandson on the note. And the grandpa's going to be making the payments. That is a no-no. That is called a straw purchase. And banks do not allow that. The person who's going to be driving the car, insuring the car, and paying for the car needs to be on the note, not just a friendly, loving grandparent trying to do the right thing. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 minute. Okay, I am back. It is interesting to see the different relationships that people have when they, as far as their marriage is concerned, when they come in to buy a car. So much is revealed if you're really paying attention. Not only like the personalities involved in just the actual picking out the car. That's interesting in and of itself because you get to see the differing priorities that a husband and a wife will have. And it's just usually the female is the more practical one. The man is more driven by emotion. I know that seems backwards, but when it comes to buying cars, that's what I've noticed. Occasionally you'll see the guy, he's totally in charge, or he acts like he is. And the wife's just sitting there just really quiet. And then, when it gets down to it, she's the one making the final decision. She just lets him do all the legwork, so to speak. But I like to see them interact with one another. It's so important to do that. Like if you're really changing the type of vehicle that you've been used to driving, and you want to make sure that it fits. It's just like this expedition deal with my wife. I brought home a black Armada. And when I say black, everything's black. The wheels, the bumpers, the entire body, and the interior. We call that black on black on black. And it really does look good. It looks like Darth Vader's vehicle, something he would drive. And she fell in love with it. We drove it to church yesterday, or day before yesterday. And she just really loved the way it drove. No doubt about that. But she said last night, she said, I think I'd like the black one. What do you think? And I said, honey, it looks good, clean, but you'll take it to the car wash. By the time you get it home, it'll be covered in dust. That's just the way it is. And it will be very hard to keep clean. It'll also be hot in the summer. And it's going to show every little ding that you get in the parking lot. Black, there's a lot of drawbacks there. She said, well, the white will be fine. And it's got a light color interior too. She has always said, I don't like a dark interior. So here she is getting ready to go into a black on black on black vehicle. And I just said, I think the white with the light camel interior would just work better for us. And she said, okay, well, that's fine. So we're interacting with each other. We're making a joint decision. I wasn't dictating to her. She wanted the black one. She could have the black one. I just know, based on my experience and our experience together, she's going to regret it. And when you finance a vehicle like that, when you buy one like I'm doing, it's just like if you were to buy one and change your mind 6 months later. It doesn't work very good because that depreciation curve is straight downhill at first. And so that's on any vehicle. So you want to have time for that curve to level out a little bit, flatten out, so that 24 months, 48 months, whatever you want to trade, you can trade. But go into the decision with your eyes wide open. And as my grandmother used to say, singing out of the same hymn book. Because if you don't, then somebody's going to be upset. Another thing about the Armada, I might have already said this, that it doesn't get quite the gas mileage that the other does. And that's not an issue for us. The dealership doesn't buy my gas, I buy my own gas, but we just don't drive that much. And, we're not on a real tight budget. If you're on a tight budget and you're thinking about 3 or 4 miles per gallon difference, that could make a difference for a family, especially if you got a lot of kids to feed. Gosh, those grocery store prices, unbelievable. Of course, cars have gone up too. 2 years ago, the average selling price of a new car was around $38,000. It's just a hair under $50,000 now. And I think a lot of that is all this new technology that they're cramming into vehicles. And it's not cheap. Remember how computers went down in price year after year after year? Cars aren't doing that. The more technology that they add, they keep going up. Of course, there's a lot of materials involved in building a car. It's not just about software or computer technology, even though most vehicles are a rolling computer now. There's a lot of steel in there, a lot of aluminum, a lot of copper wire, a lot of glass, a lot of plastic. I don't know if plastic has gone up a lot, but all of those things go into pricing a car. I just can't imagine being smart enough to be able to, let alone build a car, but figure out what to charge for it in order to make a profit. When you take into account all of the different things, it's just not the cost of the materials that go into a car. It's the plant, it's the workers, it's the electric bill at the plant. It's all of those things that go into it. And that's why there are a whole lot smarter people in the world than me to figure that kind of thing out. Now, I know Ford did some interesting things several years ago. They built a new plant on the same, it's the same grounds. It's called the Rouge River plant, where they used to build Model Ts and Model As. And they built a new F-150 plant there in order to conserve some of the extra cost involved, one of which was fresh water, and the other was heating and cooling. They decided to plant grass on the roof of that entire building. And by doing that, they were able to save about 15% on both heating and cooling that building. And then they made the parking lot, it was paved, but it was a really rough surface. It's because it was porous. And what they would do, collect rainwater. And that's where they got all of the water for the plant. They didn't have to pull any of it out of the Rouge River. All of it came from rain falling on the parking lot and their ability to collect that and use that to handle all the water needs inside the plant. So this spring, what you need to do is just take off all the roof shingles on your house, plant grass on your roof instead, and then as far as the driveway is concerned, dig all that up and put down porous concrete and collect all the rainwater. And just think how much money you'll save. And you got that idea from the Car Guru. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So Ford is offering a pretty good deal right now on tires. Yes, Ford dealers sell tires. And we sell a lot of tires. And the reason is because we have a bunch of different suppliers, and all of those suppliers give us the same price that they give the Ford Motor Company. And they have some buying power. So what happens is they let the dealers buy the tires through Ford, and then they offer these special deals to incentivize people to come into the dealership. Now, other manufacturers may do the same thing. But like right now, if you buy a set of 4 tires, they'll give you a basically a Visa card for $100. So you get that right off the top. And they'll pay for a 4-wheel alignment. Now, when was the last time you had one of those? If it's been several years, you better get one. If you have recently come into contact with a curb, you better get one. If you look at your tires and the outside edge of your tire, let's assume that you have enough air in them, which that's a pretty big assumption for most people. With these tire pressure warning systems, most of you have been notified already when the weather got cold that you didn't have enough air pressure in your tires. So let's assume that you get that where it needs to be. But you notice when you're looking at your front tires that they're wearing on the outside edge. Or when you turn your steering wheel real sharp, you can see the inside edge, and they're really wearing much more than the center tread. You need a four-wheel alignment. Now, I don't care where you get it. I've got a shop that is still in operation here in Greenville. I think they've been in operation for like 60 consecutive years. And they don't have one bit of technology, but they can slap a line of front end. I mean, they can do it as good as any computer. Those people are rare, but most dealerships and most tire stores have the latest equipment as far as alignment. Why do you need to align all four wheels? Because most cars have an independent rear suspension. And even if they don't, you want to make sure that the front tires are in line with the rear. Sometimes the rears can get a little wonky, little off kilter, even if it has a solid rear axle. And there are some adjustments on even those. But primarily, you need to make sure that your fronts and your rears are in line with one another. You ever seen a car going down the road that's kind of looks like it's crabbing? You know, it's got the front end is cocked over. It's going straight, but you can see the side of it. That car either has a bent frame, which is probably what the problem is, or a severely out of alignment condition with the front tires. And so get that done. What does that cost? Well, it should cost somewhere between $100 and $150. But ask first. Make an appointment. Come down to Gateway. We can tell you if your vehicle is out of alignment just by driving into our service department. We have these devices that were sold to us by Hunter, which is the #1 company when it comes to alignment equipment. And when you drive through the doors into our service drive, there's about 48 laser beams that are hitting your front wheels. And it tells us instantly 2 of the primary measurements of alignment. That's toe and camber, or is it caster? One of those 2 C words. And so if those are out of whack, then you need an alignment. But if they're not, if you drive in and it's fine, then you don't. See, a lot of businesses or dealerships charge you to put it on the alignment rack, and I understand that because that takes a lot of work. But if they have one of these measuring systems, they don't have to do that. So get that done. Preserve your tires. And if they're already worn out, come down and get you a new set. The deal's pretty good right now. Well, thank you for listening to this edition of My Car Guru. As always, if you have any questions, you can text me at 423-552-2020 or send me an email to Lenny Lawson, 2020@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time.